This story is really something. Let me show you this. So we have a Trump supporter who sued a town in Long Island for $25 million. And he said, they're trying to silence me. So that is quite a character there, isn't it? That is quite a character that we're talking about here. Let me give you a little bit of the story, then I want to show you what his car looks like and what his house looks like and everything. I'll read you some of the bumper stickers he has on his car. So Michael Wasserman is this guy's name, and he says, quote, "I believe the city is trying to silence me because I'm pro-Trump." He's 62 years old, he's an entrepreneur, and of course he became a minor celebrity in the area, for better or worse, because he put pro-Trump stuff all over his house, all over his cars. He has a Porsche and a Jeep. And he has a rotating variety of political flags and stickers. So it's a $25 million federal lawsuit against the city of Long Beach. And he's also suing the chief of police, the city manager, and specific police officers after they forced him to remove some of the flags on his cars. Now, by the way, I find this particularly hilarious because one of the flags he's flying is the Blue Lives Matter flag. Flying the Blue Lives Matter flag while simultaneously suing the police. Hilarious. So let me give you some of the legal specifics here. The town claimed that they're in violation of an ordinance that states, quote, "No sign shall be erected, affixed, or maintained within the perimeter of any public street or public property." And Wasserman parks his car on a public street outside of his home, so they're saying, listen, this is against an ordinance, and it's not because it's political, it's because it's against the ordinance, and so you have to take it down. He says, quote, "They're bending and massaging the ordinance to fit the crime. This is a blatant attempt to silence me." I find that argument a little curious because I'm sure most of the police officers who are sent there to tell him he has to take it down, they might be pro-Trump too. So it doesn't seem like it's politically motivated, or maybe it is. I'll withhold judgment for the time being. The town's lawyer is a guy by the name of Howard M. Miller, and he told the Post, quote, "It's not a political case. It's not the content of the message. It's where he had it. It's on a public street." Lawyer Victor Ferraru is a liberal Democrat, and he's actually defending this guy. And he's taken heat for defending him. And he told the Post, quote, "We wouldn't be here if he were flying a Biden flag. This is selective targeting for his political ideology." So, without further ado, let me show you some of his stuff here. This is the back of his car. So let's read through some of these bumper stickers. You have a Trump thing pissing on a CNN bumper sticker. You have Trump written with an I and an H in there, so it actually spells triumph. You have "illegal isn't a race, moron." What else do we have here? "This is not a gun-free zone." "Armed infidel." "Freedom isn't free." "My governor is an absolute idiot," and it has a picture of Cuomo there. I don't know what that one below the Cuomo one is. You have Trump pissing on a Biden thing. His license plate literally says "Got Trump." And he's got a coexist thing with the NRA, and the coexist is actually with guns. So it's mocking the left-wing coexist bumper sticker and putting coexist with guns, and it's an NRA sticker. So I'll show you his house, too. Do we have the one of his house? Yes, we do. We have the picture of his house. You see the Trump flag. There's literally a "fuck Biden" flag and a couple "fuck Biden" banners, and then you have that pro-police flag that I referenced earlier. So, listen, man, this actually reminds me, there was another case I saw today. It's in Broward County, Florida, and you have a guy has an LGBTQ flag up. And by the way, it's just a little LGBTQ flag on this guy's mailbox. It's actually a couple. It's two older gentlemen who are gay and together and live with each other. They probably married, although I didn't read the specifics of the story. But either way, on their property, they have mailbox, and they have a little pride flag on their mailbox, and Broward County is telling them, you got to take that down. And they're effectively making the same argument as this guy. They're like, what are you talking about? This is free speech. That's what this is. And so the argument from what's his name again? Michael Wasserman. He's like, doesn't matter if you don't like it. It's my car, and it's my house, and I can put whatever I want on it. and that's the end of it. So, listen, my take on it, I mean, I kind of agree, because I think the gay couple should be able to keep their flag up and the county can't tell them no. And I do think he can keep this stuff up and the county can't tell him no. I mean, it gets a little questionable because there's all sorts of ordinances and zoning laws and whatnot. So, like, for example, you can't put like a strip club or a weed store right next to a school. Now, can those people argue, hey, this is my right to do it, and doesn't matter that I'm near the school. This is the property that I bought, and if I want to fly a flag that says like free weed or weed $10 or whatever, I should be able to do it. That's free speech. It gets a little sticky, right? Like you can regulate the economy and you can regulate speech in a way while still upholding the right to free speech. So honestly, his best argument I could have seen was like the flags and the banners that say fuck Biden. You can't having curse words prominently displayed in the middle of the day on a public street, and you got kids driving by on their way to school and you see the curse words, "Mommy, what does that mean?" or whatever. Like, you can see how the town, politics aside, would be like, this is just obnoxious and fucking crazy. I remember back when my dad was alive, he owned a laundromat, and as he got older, and he had painted his building like this very bright color, and then the town came and they were like, "You're gonna have to change that." And he was like, "What? I thought I have a right. It's my property. I could do what I want." And they were like, "Matt, line A, subsection 123 says the following, and you can't have that there." Now, listen, if you sue and you go all the way to the Supreme Court, is it possible that the Supreme Court says, yeah, it's his property, he could do it whatever color he wants, that's fine, he's right and the town is wrong? But was my dad going to spend however much money it cost, $200,000 or whatever, to go all the way to the Supreme Court in order to try to defend that? Of course he wasn't, and so we changed the color. But, like, there are sort of open legal questions, you know? My opinion is I always lean more on the side of free speech than not, but this is one of those sticky cases, and it's not because it's pro-Trump. It's because there's the cursing, and it's also the volume of it. You know what I mean? Like, if he just had a Trump flag, I don't think anybody would care. Or if they cared, they certainly wouldn't call the cops on him. But a lot of people called the cops, and they're saying, this is against the law because it's fucking endless, and it's everywhere, and it's prominently displayed on public property. See, but that's the thing is, that's where I side more with him, because it's not like he's putting the flag up on literal public property. It's not like he, went to an electrical pole and put a Trump flag up there. Then you could argue that's not okay because that's public property. Public represents all of us, and he's putting a particular viewpoint on the public thing, but it's on his own car. So on that, I sort of side more with him. But, I mean, listen, my judgment on it overall is that people need to have a little bit of common sense, man. Like don't put the strip club next to the school. Don't put the weed store next to the school. That should be common sense. Don't put up 417 pro-Trump things. Put up 2. You know what I'm saying? And I do think that probably most of the police officers who were given the unfortunate task of trying to reel this guy in, I'm pretty sure a lot of them were pro-Trump, and they're like, listen, bro, it's got nothing to do with that. It's, you're scaring everybody in the area, and you're flying too much shit. It's almost like this. Would it be legal to take your property and drive and draw a picture of somebody spreading their ass cheeks on the side of a building? Or people just fucking raw dogging it on the side of a building with a perfectly clear drawing of it? Would that be legal? Would somebody be able to say, that's free speech? I could do that. It's free speech. Well, now you get into the whole question of, like, again, to bring up the children, don't they have a right not to see shit like that on their way to school or on their way to get some food with their family? It seems like it's a stretch of a free speech argument, doesn't it? In the same way that, the weed store next to the school or strip club next to the school. And I do think it does feel like a little bit of a stretch from him, too. But ultimately, if it's on his property, it's on his car, and it's on his house. If I had to rule on this and I'm in the Supreme Court, I'm ruling on his side. Because I don't see how you can say to him, you can't have that up. But then you say to a gay couple that has up a gay pride flag, you can have that up. And then, you know, you can make the counter argument in the gay pride example, it was just one flag, so that obviously should be allowed. But in a scenario where it's a gay pride thing and you have like 100 flags and you have aggressively lefty stuff written there, I still think that should probably be allowed. I do think you get to a gray area when he's got the fuck Biden stuff, because to have the curse word up there, and it just gets a little more sticky in my mind, because there are questions of like basic regulation versus authoritarian crackdowns on speech, right? So towns can have ordinances, towns can have certain rules, towns can have zoning laws, you know, and I guess the question is, how extreme do you want them to be versus how lax and leaning on the side of freedom do you want them to be? Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think most people would have been reasonable if he only had a few Trump flags up. But since he's so over the top, and I think the guy's genuinely unbalanced, I think people were sort of put off by it, and it was overwhelming how many flags and how many bumper stickers, and that's why people were like, this is actually... The other thing is, it probably impacts housing prices. That's another thing that the other people are probably annoyed with, is that it makes it so that you're making everybody's property around you a lot cheaper. Because who wants to live next to the fucking crazy person, you know? And so that might be another thing that people are considering when talking about this. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a weird case. It's a weird case, even though he's a psycho. And by the way, his arguments are terrible. Like they have stuff he's saying in there about politics. He was a Democrat until like 2004 or something when he voted for George Bush. And now he's just the most hardcore Kool-Aid drinking Republican ever. The guy's a moron, and the guy's a complete follower. And so I'm not sympathetic to him at all on that front. But, you know, I just think it gets into some sticky territory if you tell him that you got to take it down. Because where do you stop, you know? I guess you can make the argument in the other direction. Is there anything you could tell people to take down if you can't tell this guy to take it down? You know? So it's also a slippery slope in the other direction. What, are you just going to allow up anything at all times, no matter what? Doesn't matter? So, I don't know. Obviously, you could tell I'm struggling with the case a little bit, but at the end of the day, I think I do sort of side with him. Even though the insistence from the town is this has nothing to do with free speech. It has to do with the ordinance of no sign shall be erected, affixed, or maintained within the perimeter of any public street or public property. You know, so they swear up and down it's got nothing to do with the content. It's not about politics. It's that anybody putting any sort of sign prominently displayed on a public street, that's what we're against. But again, the guy could argue, but it's my property. This isn't on the public street. It just happens to be on the public street, but it's on my property. So you guys make your own mind up. He's a psycho. He's out of his mind. His arguments are terrible. He's a weirdo. But legally, he might be allowed to do it. You know, and it's uncomfortable, but that's probably true.